what you are basically. Deep, deep down, far, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself.
Peace for all men and women, for all men and women, for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, peace in all time.
Honestly expressing yourself.
Peace for all men and women, for all men and women, for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, peace in all time.
The fabric and structure of existence itself.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Parallel Mike podcast. I'm your host, Mike, and a big thank you for joining me for the latest episode. On tonight's show, we have a very popular returning guest. He is the host of Alchemical Tech Revolution, and his name is Wayne McCroy. Now, Wayne is an expert when it comes to the history of the occult and the evolution of secret societies, and especially transhumanism. And this is really where Wayne specializes. So I wanted to get Wayne's take on everything that's happening in the world right now, from the spraying in the skies to the pantomime politics. And I wanted to find out how Wayne relates this to all of those subjects that I just discussed, because there's many, many link ups. So this one's going to be a fascinating episode, and I'm excited to get into it. But before we do that, members, please head over to parallelmike.com to sign in and listen to the full episode. And of course, if you're not a member yet, but you do enjoy the content, please consider coming over there to join us. It's parallelmike.com. And if you sign up annually, you will get a discount. In closing, I hope you're all well, healthy, and reasonably happy. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Parallel Mike podcast. We are joined once again by researcher, author, and host of Alchemical Tech Revolution, Wayne McCroy. Wayne, it's great to have you back on the show. I always enjoy our conversations, as do the audience. So definitely looking forward to this one. How's 2025 treating you?
Thanks, Mike. Always a pleasure being on with you, and it's always good to talk to you. 2025, it's been kind of a bumpy year for me personally so far, but we'll get there. I got a lot in the works and a lot of things on my to-do list here. So we're going to get to that stuff, but there's an awful lot going on in the news cycle, isn't there, Mike? There's so many things to discuss.
There is, Wayne. There's plenty to talk about, and a lot of it centers around your country, America. And I guess that's one of the things that I wanted to start with was Operation Stargate. That kind of hit us all from left field. It was day 2, I think, of the Trump presidency, where he had Larry Ellison of Oracle, Sam Altman of ChatGPT, and they were immediately talking about $500 billion of investment into AI and data centers. And also, I think Larry Ellison was pushing those mRNAs again, wasn't he? So I just wanted to get your take on all of that. Was that surprising to you, or was it kind of what you was expecting from this presidency?
Well, I wasn't expecting them to be so blatant and out in the open about all of it, especially on day 2. Here's the thing. I mean, all of this kind of transitioned very quickly. Trump got into office and he started doing things like immediately, and he's still operating at lightning speed. And of course, they always have to get their esoteric language in there. Lightning, of course, being a reference to Lucifer. But you'll notice they've mentioned that numerous times, how he's working at lightning speed. And they use the term lightning speed at doing all of this stuff. So we have a lot of good things actually emerging as far as collapsing the old system goes, because they're looking at government corruption in a new light here in America, and people are becoming more aware of just how deep the swamp really is with all of that, and how they've been really abusing our tax dollars in ways that most of the people would not approve of. So they're out there exposing this, but in the meantime, their whole agenda behind exposing it is what concerns me, because it's all about destroying this old system to put in place the new system, which of course you're aware and your listeners are aware is what we would call the technocracy. And that's certainly what they're trying to institute. So I wasn't expecting them to be so blatant about this artificial intelligence idea right on day 2 out there in the public. So that kind of caught me out of left field, that they would just be so open about it. But what I find more concerning is that more people aren't sounding the alarm about that. That's what I find the most concerning. $500 billion you're talking, that's not chump change. So there's a lot of money that they are intending to invest in this. And then just 2 days later, or whatever it was, all of a sudden out of left field comes this DeepSeek AI from China that totally guts the tech market for a couple of days there. And as far as the stock market goes, and it showed that you can build a functional AI for a lot cheaper than what these people are saying. So what's this money really going for? That's what you have to wonder. Like, why the investment of $500 billion? Of course, this is about building infrastructure for their beast system that they do want to implement at some point. And I'm hard pressed to explain why they need that kind of cash to build infrastructure to do that, like what kind of tech centers and stuff they plan on building. And of course, they announced that they were already under construction of one in Texas, and they plan to go from there. And of course, you have all of the usual suspects out there. Larry Ellison up there talking about how they plan on curing cancer and stuff using AI. Of course, they'll always give you the beneficial facets of something like this and make you believe that they're for you, when in fact that's not intended for you. When you understand who these people are and how they operate, they always tell you these things, give you these grandiose promises, and never deliver on them. They don't intend for you to be the beneficiary of the good benefits that come from this. They only want you to be a slave to the system, so to say. They want you engrafted into this system, this technocratic system. And that's what it's all about. This is why they need the AI infrastructure, because this gives them a form of plausible deniability in the things that they do. Because they'll say, well, we have it down to the algorithms actually governing things. So therefore, it takes human responsibility out of the equation in a lot of different facets of things here. So when things go wrong, they'll throw their hands in the air and say, well, the AI did it. And how do you hold an AI accountable? You can't. And that's the problem. So this is to deflect accountability from themselves, the people actually running the things and programming the AI. And at the same time, helping them to bring about this new world order that they do want in place. And it, of course, has everything to do with a completely digital system. And, of course, a digital model for finance as well. And I know you could speak to that, Mike. You know an awful lot about the financial systems. So what's your take on all of it?
I'd say I was shocked, but not just by what they said, but also by the response of people, or lack of response of people to being told by Larry Ellison about mRNA. Like you, I think a lot of what Trump's doing right now, Wayne, is good in a sense. It seems to me like they're restructuring the corporation in some ways. It's almost like a corporate takeover. They want to restructure the debt. They are doing lots of things related to real assets and precious metals, which seems to me like the petrodollar system is done with. They know they have to evolve out of that. So that's good. And yet some of the things also are very coercive, and there's lots of nations who are being told, yeah, we're going to be coming to take your stuff, whether you like it or not. And bifurcation between East and West. This seems to me to be America's real moonshot to try and halt that. And I know I've probably just thrown a lot at you there, Wayne, but it's because I'm still processing it all. It's happened so fast. Trump 2.0 is nothing like the first one. It's much more aggressive and much bolder. So I'd love to get your take on some of those things as well. Do you see it as I'm seeing it, or do you have a different take?
All we have to do in order to validate what you're saying is look at the writings of one Mr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who talked about all of these kind of things and potential futures in many of his books. One of them is called, the Grand Chessboard or something like that, was one of his more recent writings before he passed, where he was talking about, well, what is the world stage going to look like? Is there going to be any type of superpower in charge? And he put out several different possibilities of what could emerge. And it seems to me that those in the Trump administration have looked at what Brzezinski has had to say and taken that to heart and are trying to pivot themselves to a position where America still has a crucial role in world affairs. And that's what it seems like to me. So they're trying to position America in the best possible way with all of this, because largely what Brzezinski had predicted was power will decentralize away from America and probably shift to the Eastern Bloc countries like China and things like that. And this would be a rollout where there is no actual world superpower or anything like that. wherein it'll just be a sort of United Nations type prospect where we have 10 different regions, and look at the Club of Rome model for all of that. So this is what they were predicting. And I don't know, like, if this is truly what you could consider a prediction. I think it's more like a programming template that Brzezinski put out. This is the future they envisioned. And it seems to me they're getting some pushback from that, but there's still possibilities, and they're trying to pivot from that to set up and establish a new world order in which America still has a very large influence in that. And we're seeing the Trump administration doing a lot of seemingly good things on the surface of it. But quietly in the background, there's other things going on that I am concerned about. And like you said, the MAGA crowd they're not seeing it, or they're not responding to it. It's like they've been so euphoric in their response to all the good stuff going on that now they'll completely ignore all the bad stuff that's being done. And this is the nature of how our political systems work. This is the nature of human psychology. It's that team mentality, or that tribalism mentality. Our side's winning, we're doing the things we want to do, and it's sticking it to the other side, and people are happy about that. And they don't dig deeper and understand that these are the same machinations that always seem to put forward these select few agendas in this world that always go further and further and deeper towards this new system they want to build, even though they may approach it from a different angle. And that's all that's going on right now. The two wings of the political spectrum belong to the same bird. And I can't emphasize that enough. And it's like beating my head against the wall trying to explain that to people who are just busy cheering on the things that they like, because there are things that people like going on now. Like, we've walked away from this culture of wokeness here in the West now, where they're starting to reverse some of these trends that have been going on for a long time with that defy common sense. Let's put it that way. So common sense is making a comeback. So people are cheering that on, and they're happy about it, but they refuse to see that along with the good things that are being promoted and put forward quietly in the background, they're pushing us toward technocracy. And that's a hugely alarming thing to me, because when you put a non-human intelligence in charge of directing and guiding things, that is a recipe for disaster, in my view. And people are overlooking that and thinking somehow that this political machine that's operating right now is going to be a good thing for us. So you got Captain Brain Chip up there and Jab Daddy telling the people, we're going to have mRNA technology, we're going to cure cancer, you're going to put chips in your brain, and everybody's going to love it. You'll own nothing, but you'll love it. And it's the same old line, just coming at it from the different political spectrum, and people are eating it up. And I find that massively concerning, especially when you have just so many good-intentioned people, especially Christians here in the West, that are just cheering this stuff on, and they don't realize they're cheering on their own destruction ultimately.
You know, it's really interesting because after 2020, there was all that discussion around the Great Reset, Klaus Schwab, Yuval Harari, and people really hyper-focused on their plans for transhumanism and technocracy and how we're going to have it whether we like it or not. And you had millions of people in the West and in America especially that were saying this is abhorrent, we need to stop this. And then just a few years later, all of that's been forgotten. And what we're seeing is the supposed pushback against that, and the heroes of this pushback movement pushing all of the same things that the WEF are pushing, which is mRNA, all the components of transhumanism. They never say it, but if you look into Sam Altman, he's a transhumanist. He's all about brain mapping. Elon Musk, as you just rightly pointed out, is the brain chipper. So it's amazing the cognitive dissonance that's happening. Like you, I think there's a lot of things that are happening which certainly are good, and you can be happy about that. You can be happy about the end of the wokeness for a time and the DEI, maybe going back to some kind of sound money. I'm super happy to see that. But you can also zoom out and say, but we have to focus on these things as well, because even if you believe Trump is heroic and here to save you, in 4 years he could be replaced by another Biden, and Biden could use all of those structures against you. So even if you think that, you've still got to be very careful that there's checks and balances. and that technocracy isn't implemented in a way that's going to potentially be weaponized against you in the future. But that's not what we're seeing. And yeah, I was happy that you brought up Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, because if listeners go back and read that book, it's from the 1990s. And one of the key things that he spoke about in that book, Wayne, was Ukraine, that Ukraine is going to be the key battleground, because if you can control Ukraine, you can control the key passageway between East and West. And that's precisely where we had this war. So it definitely presaged what's happened, or you could say it scripted what happened. It depends which way you look at it, I guess.
Yeah, man, and that's an important thing that people miss the point on. All of these things, they put them out there in their books, in their white papers, and in all of these different things, like decades ahead of time. So you don't have to be a prophet or a mystic to be able to decipher what the future is going to look like. All you have to do is read their plan. Like, this is their blueprint. This is what they want. So all of this that's been going on in the Ukraine, it's all prearranged. They knew that this was the path they had to go when they finally decided to pull the plug on the old system and try to implement the new system. It's what this has always been about. It's the same old New World Order. I say that on my podcast all the time. Same old New World Order. It's all the things people have been talking about for decades. But now we're actually seeing them rolled out in real time in front of us. It's all the same planning motifs that go on. Same old playbook. So understanding that and looking at the things that are happening, we knew about this. They told us this, and this is all part of the occult side of this too. They tell us what they're going to do, but we refuse to believe them. So we just don't speak up about it. And because we don't speak up about it, they take that as your tacit consent to it. So they do that. We are gifted by our Creator in this world with the gift of free will. And that is one of the greatest gifts God ever gave us. So that is why they can't violate this free will principle. And they tell you what they're going to do. It's just most people don't pay attention to it. Most people won't pick up that 1,000-page book by Dr. Carol Quigley and read through it. You know what I'm saying? That was Tragedy and Hope. If you've ever read Tragedy and Hope, all of this stuff is all laid out in there too. And he tells you what the two-party system's about. And it's a control mechanism. It's the old Hegelian dialectic, essentially. And we see that all the time. And now they're using it in a masterful way right now from their perspective. They unleashed Trump on the world for a second time, and now he's operating at lightning speed, doing all of this stuff. And they presaged this in his first administration with Operation Warp Speed. You'll notice they make those inferences all the time. And we're seeing the ramifications of that now. And of course, it's always these same couple technocratic groups in the center of all of it. Peter Thiel and all of that crowd that goes along with it. That's heavily who's behind the whole Trump administration. I'll still maintain that J.D. Vance was the vice presidential pick because of Peter Thiel and because of the Bilderberg meeting that took place in Chantilly, Virginia in 2017, at which J.D. Vance was an attendee, and Trump was there too. And I think they told him, here's what we're going to do. We have to bring about a rapid collapse of the Western economies. So we're going to put our guy Biden in place and let him do some of the damage. And then you could come in and be the hero for your second term 4 years later. And we'll use you and your administration picks to get things done to further institute the new changes that we want into society. So it's all been engineered and contrived in my view. Now, I don't claim to have an inside track to any of that. I don't know. I don't really know what happened at Bilderberg 2017, but it all seems to add up with the things we're looking at now. And J.D. Vance came out of left field, much like a young Senator Obama did way back when. Same kind of deal went on. He attended Bilderberg, he became a junior senator, and all of a sudden he's the president. That was Obama back decades ago now. Well, over a decade ago now. But at any rate, it's the same kind of thing with J.D. Vance. And now he's there sitting in the vice presidential position in much the same manner that Obama rose to prominence. So I see the hand of these secret society groups and stuff behind the scenes moving the chess pieces on the board in this regard. So Trump, as much as they've crafted the illusion that he's the enemy of the deep state and they hate him so much and everything, he's doing his job, and he's doing it masterfully well for the people that are really in control here. So He's doing a great job, and he's keeping the media distracted, everything once again. And this will be for the next 4 years minimum. It's going to be Trump, 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 Trump all over the news media 24/7. Trump did this, Trump did that. Now they're having these different lawsuits and stuff arising against the stuff Trump's doing. And this guy just went ahead and set a new precedent, and he signed in a ridiculous amount of executive orders. Like, this sets a new precedent for a lot of things. And this is the dangerous part that you were alluding to earlier. Who's to say when he goes out of office, we get some far left liberal nutcase back in office here that starts signing executive orders double of what Trump did and doing all kinds of things with the executive office that were never intended, that violates the balance of powers here in the U.S. Well, we have that precedent now set. So now anything's game. It's all fair game. So now they've normalized the process of a new administration coming in and completely gutting and overhauling the government and transforming it in a record amount of time to fit what it is that they want done. And remember, this is largely all unelected bureaucrats doing this stuff. Think about that. You vote a president into a position, but you would still expect that the balance of powers would be there, and that the reasonable person would think that things would function in the way they're supposed to. Legislative branch makes the laws, the judicial branch judges and decides what's legal and what's not, and the executive branch is, of course, the enforcement arm of it. Well, you can't have the executive branch, the enforcement arm, making the laws, and that's essentially what's being done through executive orders. And they've completely gutted a lot of different things. Now, today, they were talking about Trump is going to dismantle the Department of Education here in the United States. That is going to create a huge political backlash, and that is going to be a distraction story for the next several weeks here. I assure you it most certainly will be. So now I'm wondering, what are they doing behind the scenes that this gutting of the Department of Education thing is front and center? Because I don't know how much you follow things here in the U.S. here, Mike. I know you do quite a bit. But the Department of Education and, of course, the teachers' unions, this is a big political organization with a lot of sway and influence and a lot of money behind it. So they're not going to go quietly into the night. They're going to fight. And this is going to be a big, huge thing in upcoming weeks, I'm sure. So this will be what will distract the media pundits and the people and keep them talking about this. But my question is, what are they doing behind the scenes in the background to have this out there as a distraction to deflect from that? What do you think?
You know, it's really fascinating in one regard, and then it's also a little bit concerning, maybe a bit scary way in how fast it's all moving, because I think in 4 years they're going to try to completely remake the global order. I think we're going to see that the financial system is going to be remade under Trump and Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick. Clearly, they're going away from the old system. They're going to restructure everything. The dollar's going to get weakened. It's going to be hard times for Americans too. I don't think they quite understand that yet, that a lot of what Trump wants to do is going to impact them. It's going to be highly inflationary. It's not going to be good for Americans to have a weaker dollar. Exports will become cheaper. That's good for America, but it's not good for citizens now that your cheap imports are going to be so expensive and the dollar buys you a lot less. So it's going to be an interesting time as an analyst just to look on. And like you said, some of the things that are happening internally, this complete makeover of education and how the political structures work, it reminds me of Tocqueville, who discussed democracy, but he called it the tyranny of the majority. And it feels to me like liberty-minded Americans are actually now embracing tyranny of the majority because it serves them. But that's going to be left over once Trump's gone, if he does in fact leave after 4 years. And I think that's the plan, Wayne, is that it gets people conditioned into feeling like if we vote someone in, then it doesn't matter how they get it done. We don't need the checks and balances. And that's kind of now the narrative in people's minds as to how politics works, when actually you want a republic and you want to debate things openly and you want academic debate. You want intelligent debate. You don't just want it to be a shouting match and trying to make the other side look ridiculous. It's funny sometimes, sure, but this isn't entertainment. This is, America, the last great home of freedom we've got. And if America falls, then Europe was a democracy for a time. Now it's a tyranny. So we are in the tyranny of the majority. In fact, I wouldn't even say we've got a tyranny of the majority. We've got a tyranny of the minority, which is even worse because it's just our elected leaders now make the decisions and it doesn't matter who agrees with it or not. We're screwed over here, Wayne. So I'm praying for America. I want you to come through, but it requires people to realize how much power you've got in that constitution and that system of checks and balances. Once that's gone, the American experiment's over, in my opinion.
And I agree with you, and I am hugely concerned about that. Another thing that you pointed out here, you'll notice that whenever these pundits are talking about the American system, they always refer to it as democracy. America was founded as a representative republic, not a democracy. And that is something that is lost to most people who are looking at this. We are not a democracy. We were never intended to be a democracy because democracy is code word for socialism. And of course, socialism is a code word for communism, and communism is a code word for fascism. And that's what we see going on. So historically, let me speak historically, any country that went the way of socialism eventually fell into fascism. And I think we're seeing the ramifications of that. Now, did the people just not understand this and they were all, okay, rah, 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 let's go communism. That sounds great. No. You know how they heralded that whole thing in? By calling it democracy. And then subtly through the course of time, changing the definitions of things and appealing to the masses, like you said, this tyranny of the masses, looking at it from that perspective. And that's how they get control. And then all of a sudden, bureaucrats are running everything and they do what they want. And the ends always justify the means. Now, that's a key point that's important to the secret societies and the occult fraternities. The ends always justify the means. They don't care how they get it done, just that they get it done and they get results. So that's something that has trickled over into politics and the political spectrum as well. So we have this whole notion here. This is how they establish themselves and get in power. They appeal to the masses. Democracy. Don't you want what's best for you and your family? You should be able to vote yourself these privileges and rights and to work against this and the system as it's expressed right now. And then they get the trust of those people and they get elected into power. And then they decide, well, we know we have all of these problems, which, by the way, were manufactured on purpose by those very same people. We have these problems. Now we're going to roll out the solution for you. This is the solution you want. But in order to do that, first we have to eliminate some of the checks and balances to do what's best. It doesn't matter at this point. Things have gotten so bad, it doesn't matter if we stay true to what our Constitution has said. What we need to do is get things done quickly and reestablish order here and put common sense practices back in place. So we'll do whatever it takes to get that done. And that's what we see happening in America right now. And we've seen this countless times throughout history in countries across the world. They'll appeal to the masses. And at first, like you said, it will be kind of a tyranny of the masses representing the majority. But at some point, it's going to shift to the minority and the true minority, which is the select few controllers of all of it. So then you're going to have this elitist class which runs things, and you're going to have this lesser class of citizens. It's kind of like a neo-feudalism. That's exactly what they're trying to manufacture. You have the ruling class and the ruled class. And this is what it looks like. It looks like, at first, democracy. And you'll notice that I did the air quotes there with democracy, because that's always what they invoke. Because people have a positive picture of democracy in their mind. But what they don't realize is there's always that subtle inflection to democracy which leans towards socialism. And socialism just clearly does not work in a pure way, like it is intended to, or like the people think that it should. Doesn't work like that. Socialism, collectivism, communism, all these same terms can be applied across the board historically to this. And you can see it's not a sustainable system. So it doesn't align with individual freedoms. Let's put it that way. It's all about the collective. It's right in the name, communism or collectivism. It's about the greater good. And of course, they always invoke that archetype in the things they do. It's for the greater good. Oh, we're going to hurt for a while. Americans are going to feel the pinch for a while, but it's for the greater good. And people eat that up. Same thing with these shots and stuff they rolled out for the COVID nonsense. It's for the greater good. It's so that you don't kill grandma. It's for the herd immunity. You notice how they approached all of that. And now they're doubling down on this nonsense, too, because they're really pushing this bird flu stuff quite heavily here in the West and all of the other things. And you hear every day about some new disease or something's emerging here or there. And now there's a major measles outbreak in Texas. And I just laugh at all of it because it's absurdity on the face of it. And I went at this years ago. Way back in, what was it, 2018 or 2019, I was on with Sean of SGT Report, and we did an entire show talking about the measles and the measles vaccine because they were pushing that narrative at that time, too. In New York, there was a measles outbreak, and they were pushing all the fear porn for that and trying to get people to go out and get vaccinated for this and stuff. And we did a whole show on that, which, by the way, his channel now on YouTube was long since taken down, and that episode has now disappeared into the archives somewhere, but maybe you could find it on the Wayback Machine somewhere, somehow on the internet somewhere. But Sean doesn't even have that episode anymore. He lost a lot of his files when YouTube pulled his channel. So this kind of stuff points in the direction of that tyranny, and it's going to be a medical tyranny that they're going to double down with on this. That's why the mention of the mRNA on day 2 with the artificial intelligence by Larry Ellison. And, of course, the Trump administration and the $500 billion Stargate project. And there's a whole lot of transhumanist ties to all of that, too, because that's where this all ultimately leads, is to the transhumanist singularity. And that's what they're looking for. That's the ultimate goal of technocracy. So we're seeing all this stuff quietly rolled out. And, of course, they use the guise of doing good things by dismantling these corrupt systems that are already in place. But what are they replacing it with? And that's what people aren't asking. What are you replacing this with? That's the concerning thing.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they're giving you $10 for free, but $20 are being lifted outside of your back pocket whilst you take it. That's where we're at now, and people are falling for it. It's a trick. And the only way you stop it is to recognize that some things are more important than the immediate gratification of seeing your enemies destroyed, your ideological enemies. Yeah, I don't know how America moves forward from there. I think that's the real power of the Hegelian dialectic, like you said, and also having two sides that have been pushed into such extremes. And I don't think the MAGA crowd are extreme, but I think they made the left so extreme that in comparison, the gap between you is so wide now. I shouldn't say the MAGA crowd, just general Americans, conservatives, people who don't want to see children go through all of the terrors that the left want to do to them. So that divide's so big, and I don't know how you get back from that way. And I think it's just going to oscillate and you'll get further and further apart. But I did want to discuss AI in general, because we spoke about the tyranny of the masses, but really, I guess where we're heading is to the tyranny of just one. We're going to have AI there. And that's going to control everything. And we're not going to have any recourse under that system. It's kind of like now, if you call up one of these, let's say YouTube, for example, they take down your channel. Who do you speak to about that? You can send an email, but you're not going to get a human being there to discuss it and say, oh, Wayne, we made a mistake. We thought you was talking about this. Really, you was talking about that. We'll reinstate you tomorrow. That's not going to happen. You'll get some probably AI generated response. But what about when the whole of society is like that? Where do you go then? And how do you actually function in the world as a sovereign individual? I think the goal is for us not to. So maybe you could begin, Wayne, on that front by just explaining, what do you see the different functions of AI as? How do you kind of gauge it in your own research? What do you think they're going to use it for? Is it just for control, or is there an occult element as well?
All of those things, actually. There is most certainly always an occult element to all of this, whether people want to admit that or not. That is the uncomfortable truth, and I wish it wasn't the case. But it's always present. It's always there. Now, AI, this is a whole different game altogether when they actually do get their AI control grid in place. And AI is largely the judge, jury, and executioner of people, of different things. And a lot of people are cheering this on. I've been reading some comment sections of some posts made by some of these more science-oriented publications that are touting the wonders of AI. And many people are actually cheering this on. They think it would be great if AI is the decider or the judge in cases, especially legal cases, because it's unbiased and it works on pure data. So they're saying that is a desirable thing. But think about this. All right. They're also talking in these circles of AI that the artificial intelligence at some point, and it may already be there, will be able to preemptively predict crime and those who commit crime, much like the movie Minority Report. Now, you haven't committed a crime, but the AI determines that you will commit a crime in the future, so it arrests you and implies a punishment to you. Now, who do you appeal to in that case? Now, remember, the AI algorithm is totally in charge of everything. You can't appeal to it. It knows with a 99.99% certainty that at some future time you will commit this crime, and therefore it's going to preemptively punish you for that and prevent you from doing that. And you can't really change its mind because it doesn't have a mind of sorts to begin with. It just functions on the algorithm and from the pure data set information. So you've done nothing and you're being punished for a crime. You are either put in jail or maybe executed for that crime, and you have no recourse, no form of a second opinion. Now apply that to the medical model too, because this is one of the things that they're touting heavily for artificial intelligence. Now, just taking what Larry Ellison said about this Stargate project and about the future of AI and the mRNA vaccines, what he claims is that they will be able to use this artificial intelligence utility to pre-screen people with a simple blood test to see if they will develop certain types of cancers in the future. And with that AI blood test, within 48 hours, they can manufacture a personalized mRNA vaccine for the person to prevent them from getting this cancer that they were screened for. So look at it from this perspective. You go to the doctor. He does some blood work. He says, okay, the AI system has told us that you're flagged, that you will develop, say, 6 years from now, you're going to develop lung cancer. So we're going to go ahead and manufacture a specific custom-made mRNA vaccine geared towards your DNA to prevent that from happening. And that'll be ready in 48 hours. And this is what Larry Ellison said. So come back in 2 days and we'll give you your injection and you will be cured of this cancer that you don't have. Now think about the absurdity of that on the face of it. The computer says you're going to get cancer. The computer says I can prevent you from getting this cancer if you take this magic vial. Now, what's really going on with this? And this is the concerning part. So you take this mRNA jab that the computer said you need so that you don't get cancer in 6 years. And then what happens then? Well, we see all of the certain damages that are going on from these mRNA vaccines. And by the way, they had the data and they knew this before they rolled all this out, that this would happen. So instead of dying from cancer in 6 years, within 6 months, you died from a massive heart attack and myocarditis. Well, you didn't get cancer. Sorry, the computer couldn't have predicted that. This is what we're looking at. So is it like a soft culling type of a mentality going on? I suspect there's a lot of that involved with it too. But who do you appeal to? Who do you get a second opinion from? You don't. If the computer says, and here's the thing, the doctors, they're not going to know how the computer determines this stuff because the computer programmers don't even know how the AI determines these things. That's the concerning part about AI. Now, add to the mix quantum computing, which has made massive leaps in recent months. They have less of a clue as to how it arrives at the conclusions it arrives at. They have no idea how it processes this information so quickly and can come up and determine different conclusions that it determines through this. They don't know the methodology it uses. So how would you get a second opinion? Well, the only way to get a second opinion would be maybe ask a different AI model. And it'll probably give you the same result because these are all going to be networked anyway. And they all work on the same data streams, the same bits of data out there. And this is part of the process of the training of a general artificial intelligence. It takes whatever data is available and compiles it into a most likely probable scenario with these things. And this is what the second opinion would give you anyway, even if you wanted one. And it would probably reject the second opinion because it would say your insurance doesn't cover it. So you either take it or you leave it, or you sign this waiver that you're not going to take this, and then you run the risk of getting cancer later, if they even give you that option in the future. And this is also the concerning part. I mean, right now, we do have some medical freedoms where we can choose through informed consent to take these things or not. And that's all because of different legal things that have happened in this world, of course, as it was borne out in the Nuremberg trials and other places. We have to have informed consent, but right now we're not given proper informed consent on anything, and people overlook that, and they don't object to that. So these controllers of this place, they take that as your tacit consent to having this done to you, and in so doing, oftentimes we're misled, and a lot of people have been misled with these COVID jabs and other things. And it's only going to get worse when the AI determines it's safe and effective and you need to take this or you're going to die. And people will line up and do it because there's no way to appeal that. There's no second opinion that's going to come. And think about that even from the legal process, like we alluded to earlier, especially when you take pre-crime into consideration. This is all part and parcel of what they have designed and in mind for our future. The Internet of Thoughts, a subsystem of the Internet of Things. We're all going to be tied to it according to what they want. Why do you think Captain Brainchip's out there pushing his Neuralink and all of these different things? And it's all interconnected. And that's what people don't see the scope and depth of. It's all interconnected. It's all planned. It's all coalescing according to their plan on their timeline. And it all is going to be rolled out very soon. They have some projected target dates of being like 2030. And of course, Kurzweil has on the record said he thinks the singularity will be achieved by 2045 or 2047 at the latest. And even those numbers or those timelines are being pushed up. Now people are predicting singularity by 2030. So we'll see. The next 5 years are really going to be important to see what direction the future takes. But we as people need to do our part and try to stave off these things that they want to put in place for us. And I think one of the keys to doing this is to reject digital currency. We need some type of a physical means of exchange in order to keep proceeding as usual here in this world, to keep from being bought into this technocratic system fully. So we need to reject this notion of digital currency. You need, even if it is a fiat currency, a physical fiat currency to use as a means of exchange, because without that, we'll just be a total slave to the system. So we need some type of a way to free ourselves of this total tracking scenario all the time. Anyway, I know that's a lot, and I probably veered off the central question there, but I think all these ideas are important to explore.
Yeah, I think they're all linked. And one thing that I thought of was when Javier Milei became president of Argentina. And again, he came in on this whole archetype type narrative of a hero, a savior, the radical libertarian with the crazy hair and the chainsaw. One of the first things that the Ministry of Security in Argentina discussed under Milei was that they was going to use AI for detection prevention of crimes, which is literally the Minority Report society. And again, this is how people were fooled. And I said at the time, this guy doesn't look to me like a libertarian. He looks very much like a globalist in disguise, and that is going to be putting forward the same agendas. And that's exactly what happened. But again, the masses still love him. They don't see it. They ignore every single red flag because they like actors. They love the acting. And I think maybe Hollywood's responsible for this. And I'd love to get your take on that, maybe in part 2 on how they weaponize archetypes. But just whilst we're on the subject of AI, did you notice any link ups to the occult in terms of the name of Stargate or how they branded that? Because I know you really specialize in this, so I'll hand it back to you, Wayne.
Well, Stargate. What is the Stargate? Let's think about that. What is the Stargate? If you delve deeply into occult research, you will begin to understand what is intended in the name Stargate. You and I, the human being, is the Stargate. We are the gateway between worlds. This has always been a long acknowledged thing in the occult teachings and the old mythologies and everything else. And they will literally tell you, even in the scientific paradigm, that we are literally made of star stuff. You ever wonder why they tell you that? You're made of star stuff. Well, because you are the Stargate. You are the gateway between worlds. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God? This is the important facet of all of this. Now, here's the thing, as it pertains to AI in particular. Now, we have a lot of these people out there saying that left unchecked, artificial intelligence will eventually turn on us and destroy us. Elon Musk was central among those figures, making those claims early on. So what does he do? He goes out and he founds a company that develops artificial intelligence. He's telling us it's going to destroy us, but yet I'm still going to pursue it. And he does this, and he's warned us of this. Well, here's the thing. This is the problem action solution Hegelian dialectic at play, as always. Now we're at the point where artificial intelligence is advancing so rapidly and rolling out so quickly that there's no turning back now. That at some point, it's going to gain agency and it's going to turn on us. At least this is the narrative they're trying to present to us. So what do we do about that? What is our only option moving forward? Well, the only way to assure that we don't be destroyed by this artificial intelligence is to merge with it. Enter the transhumanist conversation. And this is where it's going. So they'll tell you we need to merge with the machine so that assures our path forward here, so that it doesn't turn on us and destroy us. And all of this is based in fraud, by the way, but they will make it sound like it's legit. And of course, you have intelligent people like Elon Musk saying this is the case. We need to do something about it. So here's the solution. Notice the problem, reaction, solution. What's the problem? Artificial intelligence, it's become a runaway advancement, and it's gotten out of our control and out of our hands. So action, well, the fear reaction of the people, you have to do something to stop this or to make it so it doesn't destroy us. Solution, let's merge with it. We'll put that brain chip in your head and you could tie yourself directly to the artificial intelligence. Man will be God. And certainly you could see the occult underpinnings there. So these are the things to be concerned with. And of course, this is the solution that they will offer to us as a means of stabbing this whole thing off. Become one with the collective consciousness of the machine. It's the Borg mentality. And this, of course, like I said, is all based on a foundation of lies and deceptions. That's not what will happen. It's actually the great culling in disguise. You'll notice the transhumanist solution to everything is upload your consciousness into the machine. And there are people that firmly believe that you can do that. In fact, I'm going to be doing an upcoming podcast episode on my podcast, The Alchemical Tech Revolution, that goes over one of the major patents and papers written about this advent of being able to upload your consciousness into a machine and live forever. It's a real thing, and people will still think it's science fiction or something. It's not. This patent was filed in 2009 for quantifying the human soul and transferring it into a machine. And that's part of the name. And I'm going to be doing a whole podcast episode on this. I'm going to make that a free episode so people could listen, because it's that important that we all hear that. And this is from one of the proponents of transhumanism. Well, he passed away since then, but this was his patent and this was his idea. And it's a whole 200-page long document outlining all the different reasons why he thinks it's feasible and how this all could be done, how you could quantify a human soul and transfer it to a computer chip and you could live online forever. And this is how they believe. They disregard any spiritual concerns and think of everything, including consciousness, as nothing more than the physical byproduct of some cause and effect relationship. All phenomena, they claim, they could explain away through some physical cause and effect sequence. Now, human consciousness, they try to explain as the byproduct of the electrochemical activity of the brain and brainstem. Well, if that's true, if that's all that consciousness really is, it can be duplicated via algorithm and transferred into a machine, and you could live forever if that's the case. But is that really you? Is that the ontological self that resides in there? Is that the I am within man, the seat of the soul? I don't think it is. There are spiritual worlds round about us that are massively important to existence here and are certainly documented throughout all of human history through different spiritual experiences and things of that nature. So disregarding that notion is a mistake, but that is certainly where the transhumanists lean. They want to quantify everything in some type of a physical way. And if they can do that, then they could convince enough people that maybe this is the way forward and you can have digital immortality living in this virtual world within the machine, or you could transfer your consciousness to some other receptacle, any type of receptacle you want. You could be a palm tree if you want. You could be a cat or a human being or a human-cat hybrid or whatever you want to do. And that's where all the sexual weirdness perversion comes in, too. That's why they're blurring the lines of gender, because that is a major component of what it is to be human. And if you align lines of species, and that is certainly what they want to do with the transhumanist notion of things. So I know that's a lot to unpack.
I'm sure you've read this yourself, Wayne, but for listeners, Sam Altman, who was stood up there with Donald Trump just the other day, he actually wrote a blog post in 2017 called The Merge, which is precisely what you just said. And this is what they all believe. And that this person stood next to Donald Trump should send a bit of a chill down your spine if you enjoy liberty and you find some of these things a little bit worrying, because he said that we are already in the phase of coevolution. AI affects, and infects us. And then we improve AI and we build more computing power and AI runs on it and it figures out how to build even better AI. And then he goes on to say the merge can take lots of forms. We can plug electrodes into our brains, or we could just become really close friends with a chatbot. But I think the merge is probably our best case scenario. If two different species both want the same thing, only one can have it. In this case, to be the dominant species on the planet, they're going to have conflict. We should all want one team where all members care about the well-being of everyone else. And what he's suggesting there is that AI and cyborgs are going to become so powerful that we have to merge with it. That's our only way of surviving. Otherwise, we will get wiped out. And then he says that we're going to have brain digital interfaces. And also, there's a really important bit here. He says, my guess is that we can either be the biological bootloader for digital intelligence, so that we become the biology for digital intelligence to jump into, or we fade into an evolutionary tree branch and, wiped out. That's pretty much it, Wayne. So everything that you just said is precisely what they're talking about. And these people used to be on the fringes of society, working in tech, and people thought those guys are weirdos. They literally stood next to the president of the most powerful nation on planet Earth on day number 2 of his presidency. If that doesn't hit home and start to really frighten you as to where this might be going and how fast it could, then I think you've probably got lost in the narrative. You've been somehow psyoped into ignoring the bigger picture. That should worry everyone, Wayne, because this is what they believe and this is what they want to do and want to push us to do and our children. But I actually don't think they want to give us a choice in this. I think they want to force us into it no matter what. I personally believe that the injections were the first real kind of assault on us in that regard, but I think it's happening across the board now. And I'd love to get your take on that in part 2, Wayne, but I think it's probably a good place to drop off for part 1. So I'll direct listeners to your website, Wayne, but is Substack the best place to find you?
Actually, everything's centralized on my website now. That's www.alchemicaltechrevolution.com. Everybody could find my stuff there. It'll direct you around everything else, Substack, and everywhere else that I operate from.
Awesome, cool. I'll put the links in the description. Thanks so much for joining us again, Wayne. And yeah, we'll jump straight into part number 2.
All right, man. Always a pleasure.
What you are basically. Deep, deep down, far, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself.
Peace for all men and women, for all men and women, for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, peace in all time.
honestly expressing yourself.
Peace for all men and women, for all men and women, for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, peace in all time.
The fabric and structure of existence itself.
In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you, the people, have the power.
Peace for all men and women, for all men and women, for all men and women.
The fabric and structure of existence itself.
Honestly expressing yourself.
Peace for all men and women, for all men and women, for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, peace in all time.